Good morning, everybody. It's Bernard Nomberg. It's Tuesday. It's 10 o'clock, so we know what that means. It's another episode of Nomberg Law Live where we have interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise, and we're in for a good one today. I've got my buddy Kendall Dunson from the Montgomery practice of Beasley Allen. Kendall, how are you doing today? And I'm so glad to see your face.
I'm doing wonderful, Bernard. Nice to be with you. Glad to be on your show.
Oh, always. I've been looking forward to this for a number of weeks. Kendall and I have done business together for several years. Our firms have done work together. We handle certain aspects of cases and they handle other aspects of the cases. And it's made for a real good, real nice relationship. But before we jump into all things Kendall and LA law, LaGrange, Georgia, and all that good stuff, Kendall, share a little bit about yourself, your beautiful family, your practice, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, as you just stated, I'm originally from LaGrange, Georgia. I went to school at the University of Georgia undergrad, went to law school at the University of Alabama. I've been in Montgomery since 1999 and in Alabama since 1993. As of 2 years ago, I've lived more in Alabama than I did in Georgia. So I guess I've crossed over now. I'm married. My wife is also an attorney. She's also a part-time municipal judge. We have three children. We have a son who is entering his senior year at the University of Alabama, and we have an 11-year-old girl and a 9-year-old girl. So we have a full house, so to speak.
You have got a busy house, I bet. I bet
Yes,
they keep you guys on your
no doubt about it.
toes. But as tiring as it may be, I bet you don't want to miss a minute of it.
No doubt about it. They
So
keep you
that
busy, but it's enjoyable.
it certainly, and the time just doesn't it just fly by? Isn't it
It does.
incredible?
It does.
Well,
It does.
guys, we're gonna
You know how Facebook gives you old memories, and
uh-huh.
a picture of me and my oldest daughter popped up from 10 years ago. The first time I took her to the beach, and she didn't want her feet to touch the sand. I thought to myself, that's a decade, and that happened in the blink of an eye.
Oh my gosh. And we got a little bit different colored hair these
Oh
days here and here, maybe a
yeah.
little less hair. But isn't it just it anyway, we could talk about that for as long as we're on today. But I want to hit some things about your practice. I
Sure.
want to hit some things about what are some interests outside of the practice of law because I that's as important about anything that we do is how we enjoy or relax a little bit sometimes because any type of profession, whether you're a doctor, accountant, it doesn't matter what you do in this world, to put bread on your table, it can be stressful at times.
Correct. Right.
But it's that balance, I think, that once you get into your practice, and as long as you and I have been practicing, hopefully we figured out a few things along the way. And it's not, as I used to call it, practicing law with my hair on fire. It just was that stress. But Kendall, I want to talk about LaGrange, Georgia, and growing
Mm-hmm.
up. I want to talk about some of your inspirations of why it is you ended up choosing this career path. But share a little bit about your childhood and growing up in LaGrange.
Yeah, LaGrange is was a small city then, and it's still a small city now. It's only an hour from Atlanta, so it's not quite a suburb yet, but it's getting very close to being a suburb of Atlanta. I recall as a young man, I felt like that drive from LaGrange to Atlanta was a long drive. It doesn't seem so long now. You blink twice and you're there. LaGrange is a very quaint little city. I remember this about LaGrange. I think it's different for a lot of people growing up in different cities.
Mhm.
From kindergarten to high school, I basically went to school with the same people
Mhm.
all of my life. We separated. We may have had one or two schools for this grade or that grade, but generally, I've known the same people from kindergarten to high school, and we're still friends to this day. So growing up in a small town like LaGrange, you don't have all the outlets that you would in a bigger city like Montgomery or Atlanta. But I really enjoyed growing up in LaGrange because of the friendship and relationships that you have with all your friends and family.
Oh, I have no doubt. Dothan is my hometown, bigger city than LaGrange, but I understand it's these cities tend to either stay pretty stagnant and they don't grow that much, or some cities just explode. And that's when they get to like that, then it takes away some of that familiarity, if you will. How many were in your graduating class?
There were 200 in my graduating class.
Okay, so that's pretty good size.
At that time, there were only 2 high schools in LaGrange. And so both schools had very good football teams. Now there are 3 high schools in LaGrange, and now neither school has a very good football team because the talent is diluted. So it used to be that we were a football powerhouse, not so much now. But a lot of people from my high school, even some of my classmates, played professional football. For a small town like LaGrange, we put a lot of people into college sports and even pro sports.
You know, it's interesting. We in Dothan, we had for many years, for about 40 odd years, we had the 2 public high schools, Dothan and Northview. Well, the long and the short of it is the schools are now consolidated into 1 high school. Now, it's only been about 3 school terms. We haven't seen the football team rise back to power that they were in the past, but that remains to be seen. But maybe you and I'll come back and talk high school sports in a few months for the football season.
No doubt, no doubt.
But LaGrange also has manufacturing. LaGrange has production plants. And that's where I want to go with this, because the type of work that you do now, it sounds like was impacted from things you experienced or saw as a child. So what type of work are you doing now? And share a little bit about that inspiration or where you got those thoughts from back in the day.
Yeah, my main area of practice is product liability with a focus on industrial accidents. So we're talking about accidents on the job involving machinery. So growing up, LaGrange was heavy in the textile industry. As a matter of fact, our football championship was called the Textile Bowl. And we played those games between 2 mills. So at UGA, they called it between the hedges. We called it in LaGrange between the mills. That's where we played our football games. And I remember as a young man seeing people walk around with missing limbs, missing fingers, a missing arm, a missing hand. And as a child, you want to know, well, what happened? And they will always say, well, it happened at work. And so now, being an attorney who practices in this area, I know how the loss of a hand or the loss of a finger affects your life in terms of you lost a body part. That's a very serious injury. Now you've also had your ability to earn income affected by that loss of a body part. So if you're used to working in a textile industry, doing work related to machines, and you lose a hand or an arm, and you can't do that anymore, you lost the ability to have a decent level of living because those jobs pay relatively well considering what's available to you in a small town like LaGrange, Georgia. So I always had an interest in that type of law, and I know how it is for a family member to be in that position. Either someone died and the family has lost their primary bread earner and they need to replace that income, or this person has lost a body part and now he or she has to move forward for the rest of their lives trying to earn income in that physical condition.
Yeah, I could see, whereas as a child and you see individuals in town who you know, or maybe your family knows, and you want to know what happened. I can see where that certainly makes an impact, but you're so right. You and I do similar work. I handle the workers' comp portion of these types of cases, and we try to bring you guys in to look at whether there was a product that failed or some mechanism that failed that led to that accident and those injuries. But you're right. All of life stresses ramp up when you get hurt on the job.
No doubt.
You're used to a certain level of socioeconomic living. You're used to a certain budget each month, and all of that goes haywire until you figure out how you're going to deal with those things. So I certainly applaud the type of work that you do and your firm does. And Kendall, I know it's not easy when you have to review a case and tell a potential client why they might not have a viable case in a industrial type accident. And that's where I want to talk for a minute or so about what are those types of things. Just because you have an accident at work and it's involving machinery, there's so many things that have to be analyzed. Did the machine fail? Did the injured worker do something they weren't supposed to do?
Right.
What if if the company removes safety mechanisms that were in there? So share just a little bit about some of the analysis that you guys have to analyze or to investigate when looking at those cases.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And as you know, Bernard, we start with the accident itself. Usually, if you send us a case, we already know it's an on-the-job injury. We know the injury, whether it's a death or a serious bodily injury. And so then we got to figure out, was the manufacturer of the machine or another entity at fault? Because we cannot sue the employer for anything but workers' compensation. And that's probably the biggest situation, the most difficult situation to explain to a client. And I have one right now, Bernard, where a mother and father lost their child on the job. He walked into a tanker to clean the tanker, and he was overcome by gases and chemicals inside the tanker, and he died on the spot. Another worker tried to go in and save him, and that person almost died as well, because the environment was dangerous. When OSHA came in to do their investigation, OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they asked that guy who almost died, well, what about your confined space training? To which that young man said, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I have to tell that family, the employer absolutely responsible for your child's death. No doubt about it. They did not have a confined space entry program. They did not train your son. They did not give him the equipment he needed to safely do his job. And in the very next sentence, I have to say, and I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it. She is now on a crusade to get the law changed to allow a direct action against an employer if they violate OSHA regulations or federal regulations on safety. And I absolutely believe that there should be an exception to that. I also told her I feel like she has an uphill battle and that it's likely not going to happen. But I'm still helping her out any way I can, supporting her morally, supporting her in research and information, talking to legislatures and state senators, because as you and I both know, if that were to happen, the businesses would have to agree. And you and I both know businesses are not going to give up immunity. But
no,
I applaud her efforts.
Alabama has been very pro-business in that sense for many decades.
Yes.
We certainly applaud and we'll get behind her efforts and do what we can. And other firms, I'm sure, would join in her cause, but we'd have to move mountains for those things to be able to occur. Yeah. Kendall, let's pause that part of our conversation for just a minute, and we're going to pivot. We're about to date ourselves, but before we do, I want to just, for those of you watching live or may watch us on replay, I'm talking with my buddy and colleague, Kendall Dunson from the Beasley Allen law firm in Montgomery. We've been talking about products liability cases. We've been talking about LaGrange, Georgia, where he got his start. But now we're going to talk about LA law. And I'm not talking about necessarily lower Alabama law. I'm talking about the TV program from the 80s, which I so remember being such a great show. How did that show get on your radar, and what impact did it have for you?
I remember my mom liked that show. And so, you know, back then in the mid 80s, you only had one or two televisions in the house. So you had to watch what mama or daddy was watching.
That's right.
The options of what you could watch were extremely limited. You had the major networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, and a few other channels. That was about it. We have thousands of channels now, whereas we had only 13 back then. So everybody watched network television. And LA Law, I think, was on NBC on network television, and it was a legal show. And it made the law seem more interesting, if you will, because not only were there legal cases, but you had the relationships between the attorneys, the relationships between the firms, the relationships with the courts and with the clients and all of that. And so that caught my interest. And I thought to myself, I think I could go into court and do a good job. So that show kind of piqued my interest in the law. And I liked watching that show. And I watched it until it went off the air. And so that show was very instrumental in piquing my interest in a legal career.
Oh, I was in love with that show myself. It had all the beautiful people. It had all
Mhm.
the beautiful scenery, but it also had bad guys and good guys who were different, played different characters. But you're right. It did show the one thing that it did show is those interpersonal relationships within the firm dynamics,
Right.
those good or bad, whatever it was. And then it showed how lawyers were in court or in depositions and those things. I
Hmm.
completely agree with you. And I was sad when it went off the air. And my
Yes.
gosh,
Yes.
obviously there's been many lawyer based shows, but one of the next one that got onto my radar, which was a completely goofy show, was Boston Legal. Do you
Boston
remember
Legal.
Boston
I do
Legal?
remember that show.
Oh my gosh, it was so outrageous, but it was anyway. We could go on, and maybe I'm going to have an episode just talking about legal or law related TV shows or movies. That could be a fun exercise.
It
But
could be.
but you know,
Especially my cousin Vinny, which I believe is
oh my
the
gosh,
best movie about law ever made. That movie is hilarious,
oh, it's so great.
and it's funny, Bernard. Now I
Uh-huh.
can't watch legal shows as an attorney because I know that that's not realistic,
That's right. That's
and
right.
so it's not entertaining to me. But back then, I would
Yeah.
enjoy legal shows, but now I don't. So
It's kind of like doctors watching Grey's
there
Anatomy
you go.
or other medical related shows.
There you
I
go.
certainly understand that. But you know, Kendall, we all get our inspiration, what sends us to law school or get interested in the law. Everybody has a different story. You growing up in LaGrange and seeing people in the community and then watching TV shows. I
Mm-hmm.
love learning those journeys. But now, fast forward, we're a few decades into our respective practices with
Mm-hmm.
very busy lives, with kids, with mortgages, and all of that. What I want to talk about for a few minutes is just you getting away from the practice of law. What are those things in life that help give you that balance that lets you kind of recharge a little bit? That the practice is going to be there.
Right.
You're always going to be thinking about it at some point or another. But how do you get away? What do you do for your mental health, for your physical health? What are those things that interest you?
Primarily my family, obviously. My kids are still growing up, especially my younger girls. And so it's always a getaway to get with them and be a part of their lives. You know, they both play tennis, they both play golf. My son is in college. You know, watching him go through this last year was painful for me. I would hate to be in college and lose a year to something like COVID. So my kids and my family are number one. Personally, I like to play golf. That time on the golf course is when I can release, relax, and not think about the grind, so to speak. Golf has a way of taking your mind away from anything but what you're failing to do at that time, which is hit that little white ball where you want it to go. So that helps out a lot. We travel as a family. We ski together at least, well, not last year because of COVID, but at least once a year we like go on a family skiing trip. So essentially, it's my family, it's golf, or it's my own charitable work. I do a lot with the YMCA here. I like helping kids, especially kids who may not have come, who may not be in the best financial situation because I was not growing up, but that's not an obstacle. I mean, that's just a condition that can be overcome. And I want to let them know, look at me, I did it and you can do it too. So those are the things that I like to do to step away from the practice of law.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned all of those awesome endeavors and things you do with family, but the giving back part is not something that a lot of the public ever sees what professionals do
Yes.
because it doesn't sell newspapers. It doesn't get a lot of clicks. They just want to see where lawyers have gone rogue,
Right.
where they're in trouble, where they've
Right.
done bad. And I love to highlight the giving back, the paying it forward aspects of lawyers or anybody else who comes on our show and helping out at the YMCA and just setting an example of who you are and
Mm-hmm.
just showing up.
Just showing
Heck,
up.
that's
Mm-hmm.
90% of it is showing up. And for you to show up at a YMCA, and I don't know if it's an after school program or a specific event, it really sets a tone for individuals. Like you seeing those individuals when you were growing up in the community, and the impact that it had with the folks who've lost limbs or fingers, et cetera, from industrial accidents, that made an impression on you. And
Right.
now you're making such a positive impression when you're showing up at the YMCA and doing those types of things. So I applaud, again, what you're doing from that aspect. Now, Kendall, if somebody calls your firm, and you'll have one of the biggest plaintiffs firms, not only in our state, but in the South, and has a fine, fine reputation. I know many of the lawyers there. I've interviewed several, but most people who've never dealt with lawyers are afraid to deal with lawyers. It's going to cost them money. Look at those expensive suits and those those awesome offices that they work in. That can be intimidating, even in the world of social media. What does your firm, what do you do, your staff, how do you break down some of those communication barriers so that people are a little more comfortable in communicating with you why they need a lawyer potentially?
That's a very good question. I always tell a client when I first talk to them, it's nice to meet you. I hate that we have to meet under these circumstances. I always tell people, I think the reason lawyers are the butt of a bunch of jokes is if you need a lawyer in your life, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's an issue you have to deal with, or someone's been hurt, someone's died, or you're in trouble legally. If you need a lawyer in your life, something's wrong. So I try to be as down to earth as possible to let them know I'm a human being just like you are. I understand what you're going through. I'm just here to help. I'm here to guide you through this process. Generally, when someone comes to us, it's their first lawsuit, or the first time something like this has happened to them, something traumatic or dramatic. And I said, look, I'm here to guide you. Yeah. You have a lot on your plate, including getting better from what happened to you. You focus on getting better. Let me focus on the legal situation.
Oh, that's so wise.
There's no dumb question. You've never done this before. Ask me anything you think you need to ask me so that you can feel comfortable going through this process. Yeah. And so I just try to be there for them, try to let them understand that I am an attorney and I have a job to do, but I'm also a counselor, and I can guide you through this process, allay some of your concerns, take things away, compartmentalize for you, help you put things where they need to be to organize yourself so you can move forward in a great way.
And sometimes you're the first person they've explained the whole situation to.
Yes.
They need a platform. They need somebody to listen. And I think that's such a valuable aspect of being a lawyer who represents those who are in need.
Yeah.
Now, tell me if you've heard this one before. I hate all lawyers except mine is the best.
Exactly.
That's so long as you guys you're doing what needs to be done and you're helping them out. Now, the other thing, I can't use this joke anymore because I'm aging out of the joke. And I usually say, I realize this is your first time being hurt at the job, a workers' compensation claim, and needing a lawyer. But it's not our first time. We've been doing this for years. But thankfully, I spent the night at a Holiday Inn Express, and you know that joke. But the younger, they just don't. I got to come up with something fresh, something new. But anyway, Kendall, we got just a couple of more minutes, and I appreciate you sharing your story a little bit, sharing your time. I want to talk about, as we get closer toward the end of our talk, the law is limiting in many ways, regardless of the type of case that you have, whether it's a Social Security disability case, a bankruptcy matter, a medical malpractice, product liability, work comp. The law in Alabama and every state sets the parameters of what can be accomplished and what can't. But many of our cases that we have and that you have ultimately come down to compensation. That's just the system that we have.
Right.
Sometimes I'm dealing with medical issues going into the future. Sometimes I'm dealing with employment issues, and you get into that as well sometimes. But here's my question for you. How do you prepare your clients as you're going through the process of representation to be able to show them or give them proper expectations? Because emotions run high. That's why they're with you. How do you temper expectations, if you will? How do you deal with that aspect? Because that's a very tricky part of our representation process?
Very good question, Bernard. And you're right about that. It sometimes certain clients are easier to deal with than others. I always feel like that's a process of establishing the proper level of trust from the beginning. And I start from the beginning, explaining to the client that at some point in time, you need to trust me to believe that I know what I'm doing when it comes to this part of the case and evaluating it, and also maximizing your recovery. I explain to them what will happen because I know the defense tactics of dangling just enough money in front of the client to make them interested, but not enough to fully compensate them for what they've been through. Yeah. And that's where it becomes difficult. Client may think, oh my God, they've offered me, in my mind, I get this, I'm good. And I tell them, not yet. We're not going to take this money to offer us at mediation. We need to go to trial, or we need to put a jury in the box, or we need to have a jury render a verdict and them understand that there could be an appeal or I could lose. That's where that trust level comes in. If a client does not trust you, there's nothing any lawyer can do or say to get that client to believe in what they're telling them.
But Mr. Dunson, out in California, my same injury got 3 times what you're telling me they're offering right now. In Florida, 4 times. In New York, 6 times. Why can't we get that kind of money? How do you
location. Not all places are made equal. California is a very big state with a lot of rich people, and the average hourly income in California may be $30 an hour. Well, that's different in the Deep South. It may be $8 an hour or $10 an hour. So different results are possible in different locations because the circumstances are different. Your friend in California was in a different scenario than what you are wherever you are. Entirely different scenario. There is no correlation unless it's the exact same judge, the exact same injury, the exact same defendant with the exact same jurors. Other than that, it's totally different.
It is, and the sad reality for the type of work that I do, or our firm predominantly does, work comp, those laws haven't changed in 30 years, and they're not about to change. We've made some attempts, but the cost of living has skyrocketed in 30 years, but not the dollar amounts that get paid in our cases. All right, Kendall, last topic. This is of utmost importance.
All right.
You practice and live in Montgomery, Alabama. Yes. You are 40 minutes down the road from Auburn University. You went to Georgia, you went to Alabama, but most of your partners bleed for the Tigers at Auburn. How do you deal with that from an office dynamics and politics standpoint during football season?
It can be difficult, except to say that my 2 schools, Georgia and Alabama, usually come out on top. So it's not too difficult. But I'm Georgia 1, Alabama 1A. So that's how we do it in my house. My wife though went to Alabama undergrad and law school, and her sister undergrad and law school. Her mom undergrad and graduate school. So her entire family are double Bama grads and are big time Bama fans. So when Alabama and Georgia play, it's a big deal in my house.
I bet it was a big deal just to let you in the door, being a Georgia first guy. But I'm wondering how is the mood on Mondays at the Beasley Allen law firm when Auburn doesn't win and Bama does win, or vice versa? I bet there's some mood swings in there on Mondays.
It's not. We have some of our high-powered people are Auburn grads and some Alabama grads, and so I would say the majority of people here are Auburn fans, easily. Yeah. But we're all. It's in good fun and jokes. We take it seriously, but not too seriously. So it's not too bad here on a Monday.
Well, and the last thing in closing, my older daughter's in the wedding planning industry, and believe it or not, this year she has a wedding planned for the afternoon of the Iron Bowl. And I thought she was joking when she told us about this at dinner the other night. I said, we know that doesn't happen in the Deep South. She said, you're going to have to forgive them. Neither of them grew up. They're both from the Northeast, and they don't know anything about college football. They are pro football fans. I said, well,
No self-respecting Southerner would schedule a wedding for a Saturday.
That's right.
Fall.
That's
So
right.
It didn't make any sense.
And as I told Sydney, I said, I hate you're going to miss the Iron Bowl this year, but it's the profession you chose. But Kendall, thank you so much for spending some time on NOMBERG Law Live. I have truly enjoyed learning a little bit of your story and your journey, and I just love the work that you do, and I appreciate your continued friendship.
Thank you, sir. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, guys. And as I say it every week, interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And Kendall Dunson certainly fits that bill. And as we do every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, just keep coming back. We've got all kind of guests. We've been lawyer heavy lately, but we are going far from lawyers next couple of weeks. So please keep coming back. Tuesdays, 10 o'clock Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. You guys have a safe and great rest of your week. Be well.